welcome to another exciting episode of Writing Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael, and today I'm reminding you all that this episode is being pre recorded due to our guest schedule. And I also, in full transparency, will admit today's episode will be short a little bit due to technical issue on my end. So I apologize to everyone. With that being said, I have a amazing guest with you. I have met her through Healerverse, so you all are in for a huge treat. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the one, the only, amazing, talented Ragan Thomson.
Oh, that's a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. Yeah. So good to be here with you, Michael. Thank you. So, wow. Let's see, where shall I begin? I have been doing healing work now in my life, within myself, with others for over 25 years. I am a spiritual teacher, a healer, a transformational intuitive coach. I was born quite awake and aware, and definitely had higher abilities when I was born. I would say, like the many of us, from the environment we were born into, from the parents that we chose, the journey of spirituality, the way that things were designed. It was designed for me to go on a really intensive journey of going asleep, waking up again, and experiencing that discomfort and pain of knowing what it's like to be awake, asleep, awake, this kind of cocoon to a butterfly experience in some way, but also just this feeling that that's why our soul came here, was to not only learn about that process, but begin to create an exceptionally healthy relationship with self, with other, with the world at large, with pain. One of our great teachers, if not the most kind of essential teacher on our planet. So through the intense amount of pain that we experience in a lot of different ways in our life, emotionally, spiritually, even physically, we were catalyzed into a greater awakening process repeatedly in this life, a deepening of awakening. And our soul, as far as we understand, one of the kind of deeper dives that we've been in has been to first kind of heal any of the non-integrated parts of self, these kind of past parts that are maybe, as far as we understand, we're an amalgamation of all of our past lives. So everything is landed here now. So anything we have not resolved, any parts of ourself, any non-integrated threads of fear or worry or doubt or insecurity or duality or polarity, any of this of which we are not truly as a soul, is here now. So my work has been to first do that inner work with myself to such a degree and keep deepening within that, so that I keep working with other folks now around the world on an individual scale as well as a collective scale. I do a lot of global work as well, to be very thorough with that work, because that, as far as what we understand, is what creates wholeness. That's what creates this idea of wholeness. People are like, what's wholeness? What is wholeness? Wholeness is really the integration of all of ourself into our heart, into our soul. And that is a journey I take people on. I definitely help people connect deeply to their heart, to their soul, to spirit, to the universe, to creation, for some folks, it's God, right? So however that deeper connection lies for someone. And we help them begin to cultivate a deep, profound relationship with themselves, all these different parts, welcoming, loving them, accepting them. Forgiveness work, lots of good forgiveness work. Really, we really listen to spirit as an intuitive channel for anyone in the room with us, whether it be, again, with an individual or on a group scale, large group scale, to meet them in rapport with what they're working with, to meet them in divine timing, to meet them in a place of great compassion and unconditional love, to let spirit be that beautiful force that flows through us. And then whatever healing modality, whatever tool in the toolbox that spirit would like to utilize through me, then we just show up for that. And so someone would say, well, what's your, main gift per se? I just feel I'm just a channel, and I have a lot of wisdom through a lot of life experience. I've been on this planet a long time. So we bring forth a very kind of loving, practical, grounded wisdom combined with the light of, which I would say the masterful, beautiful white light of spirit, flows through us, unto us, and then moves outward into their systems. So it's both kind of a physical healing, it's a spiritual healing, it's an emotional healing, it's a mental healing. So they're experiencing healing on all scales and levels. And again, it's based on what someone's ready for, based on what they're asking for, what they're ready to surrender to, what they're willing to let go of, what they're willing to allow to happen for them in a session or in a group setting. And we would never want to push that or force that. So everything's always happening in divine timing with the healing process. And yes, many hats have been worn in this life, mother, sister, daughter, wife, global service, light worker, facilitator, teacher, major sports athlete, you name it, kind of like worn all the different hats to kind of really learn about the soul process and to be able to say to someone, yes, I've been there. I've done that. I've experienced that. And this is how you can heal from that.
That's really amazing. And one of the things I'm kind of curious about is,
Yeah.
as you're going through the transformation process, I know, like you're saying, everything's in divine timing. Have you ever experienced where you're working with someone and you're like, oh, this is clearly past life memory issue coming to the front, needing to be healed and looked at? And the person is like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't believe in past lives. Those don't exist. And so, do you just say, okay, move on? Or do you kind of talk to them and get them to open up some to the possibility?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like I said, I can explain something. Here's the thing with what I've understand about healing work. When one is speaking from spirit truly as a channel, one is really truly connected. Some folks would say, "Oh, I channel the Divine Mother. I channel," I'm channeling my soul and God and spirit, right? I'm directly connected to all that is I'm not connected to some being. I'm not an archangel. I'm connected to just spirit. So when I speak from truth, which is just spirit, I find that they can hear that, right? Even because it calls someone's soul forth. Like they're like, maybe some part, remember I'm telling you about this, these non-integrated energies of ourselves, these past lives. We really don't need to talk so much about past lives because again, we are an amalgamation of all of those lives here now. Right. So I don't say to them a lot about past lives. You're right, because that can create this kind of obscuration in consciousness. Some part of them will be like, well, you don't know that. And I can't see that. And if I can't see that, then it's the unknown. And if it's the unknown, then I can't trust that. So we want to make sure that they can just, not make sure, let's say better words. We want to offer an invitation to hear truth or not, right? Usually, again, if it's consciousness combined with truth in a session or in the world in some way, that is a profound moment, usually for any part of self not integrated, as well as calling the soul forth. So I've noticed that the reason why the work has been really beautifully loving and effective and received well predominantly these days is because we're speaking from, I feel, what is just the truth of what we're hearing for that soul. And when I think it's like, that's like that radar we have, right? When you're like, that person, I don't know if they're telling the truth right now. You can kind of feel it, right? Like it's with a friend or that of which is true in a session with healing. They're like, that really resonates with me. there's like this resonant, you can feel it. It's like it's visceral. And then all of a sudden maybe your body starts to tingle, and then suddenly you're crying you don't know why you're crying, and you're laughing. Who knows? Maybe you're burping. Like your body's like, something about what you just said is just so profound, and I can feel it. So we're inviting, it's a guided process, but it's a process of them connecting back into these parts of themselves, right? And then again, we've all got a beautiful, amazing soul, right? We've all got these unique divine emanations as this, like a spark of the one, a spark of the divine, which is our soul within us. So not only do you have maybe just this kind of calling forth of, again, the healing of some part of yourself that's hearing the truth, as well as you've got your soul online who's like nudging you, being like, yeah, this is good. Yes. And so a lot of times when we do healing work with folks, we actually literally make sure to ask them at the beginning, beyond some grounding work or whatever we do, to really get in space and get centered, through meditation, through prayer or breath work or whatever it is. It's also to say, let's connect with your soul and really discover here why you came to this gathering, why you came into this session. Because it's one thing for the mind to tell us, right? And let's be honest, the mind is often false if it's just the mind sharing things with us. The mind, we're not meant to be living in our minds, right? We're like meant to be living in our hearts and our souls, utilizing the mind. The mind is not our master. We're not meant to be mastered by the mind. And so a lot of people are living in their minds. And so what we're inviting in is a very loving, graceful, hopefully kind of deeper dive within, to then ask the intention to be set, then to ask, the why are you here? What is your intention? And that's not coming from the mind. That's coming from their connection to their heart and their soul. Literally, maybe their soul telling them, the reason why you showed up here today is because we're looking to exalt, we have this fear we're working with. That's the intention. And then you're like, wow, the intention is I'm ready to let go of some fear. So really like helping people become their own kind of inner healer, learning to connect with themselves and to listen.
That's cool. And one of the things that I started thinking about when I was listening to your explanation was that seems like a really good way to get the mind that when you have like repressed memories or memories that have been locked away and you can't access them, that this technique allows you to bypass those locks, and if it's meant to be healed, bring it out. And if so, how do you go about, because there's no way to validate or no way to say, oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I really want to look at this, because it's something they may not even have conscious memory of.
Mm-hmm.
So when those happen, is there like a protocol to, or not necessarily protocol, but a method of going, okay, we got to switch gears now because we're going into uncharted territory for them?
It's a great question, and thanks for sharing it. What I have realized over time is that in any specific healing moment or experience with someone, and their soul, we are speaking directly, yes, to any unresolved energy, but we're speaking directly to their soul. And so the soul loves to grow, loves to expand, and will present to me what is being what's ready to be worked with. Because spirit, as you've heard, never will give us more than we can handle. And it does not want to blow your nervous system. So we're all working on this stuff, right? As time goes by, and whether someone's working on a little bit or a lot, it's really up to who lands in that moment, right? With us. And so usually it's really about there's so much to that question, because it's like some souls have been here for some time and some have been here a long time, and they've been gathering information, expanding, growing, learning, There's been lives of energies that didn't get processed. There's been karma created. There's been pain. There's been wounding. There's been trauma. Some of it got processed before they died. Sometimes it didn't. All of that kind of lands here now. So when someone is in a healing process within the work we do, I've just noticed that what comes forward is what they're ready to see. And you can trust that. And it's not always a requirement to see it, because sometimes, we do a lot of inner child work. We help, kind of bring forth any remaining inner children. The inner child work has been a specialty. And then really connecting to their soul and to spirit, to the universe, and then connecting to the child within. So they're starting to really feel their divinity, and they're like, oh, I do remember this. And once they start to kind of access that love, right? That unconditional love that we're bringing forth, and they start to feel so accepted and so cared for, and like that of which we become that channel, then the memories start to pop, because that's just locked down, right? It's like, and you don't need to remember it all, but what you could remember in a session or, in a healing experience is the repressed pain in general around, let's say, judgment. I don't know how much judgment I've had of myself, but I certainly can feel there's a pocket of that right here in this session. And it's like, can we forgive that? Can we bring light to it? Can we understand it? Can we accept it? And then it's like, oh, I guess I can. It's like, can we understand that really at the premise of all of this was pain that didn't get processed because you didn't know how to. And if you had, you probably would have. So usually when you start to access that kind of blanket truth, most folks don't want to live in pain. They don't want to have, density in their systems. They want to be well. So typically coming from maybe a one or both parents not being conscious, or living in an environment where just the resources weren't available to get assistance, maybe being in a stressful environment, they didn't have the ability to process that pain. They didn't know how to work with their fear. They didn't know how to work with that judgment. They were like, oh my God, I feel horrible. And it's just instead just of processing it, clearing it in the moment, maybe moving into meditation, doing some breath, pouring some light into it, surrendering to spirit, really feeling connected to all that. You're like, I'm not alone. I'm so divinely supported. No, that's not what happened. Typically, they separate from themselves. They feel scared. It feels, maybe even go to like, I feel lonely. I feel like no one gets me. These parts, all of those of which those words I spoke turn into non-integrated parts. No one gets me. I'm not worthy. They're not going to understand me. I'm alone. Like those are like little programs that get stored in the energy system. And you would think, gosh, well, I some folks believe in transition and reincarnation, some don't, and we understand it, but we're going to speak on behalf of those and the energy of that we are, again, these immortal beings. We are souls that, we transition. And so during the transitioning process, you would hope that, all that stuff got cleared out. But the truth is it comes with us. It comes with us, both the joy that you've obtained and the light, as well as what was not processed and needs to still be. And the lessons specifically within that. Our souls learn. Each life is like we're signing up for various soul lessons, and the soul has chosen those lessons before you've come into this body, and wants you to learn it while you're here. It's why you chose to be in a body. It's beyond the school that we're in, right? There's like grade school, high school. The real school here is the soul school, and the soul school is just like being completely left out of being spoken about. We're not bringing it into the school system. We're not talking about, the different facets of what the soul's really here for. We should have a class right now. It's just on feelings, on every way of the journey, right? Just learning to have an exceptional relationship with our feelings, starting to really learn to manage our energy systems, our chakra system. I know that we're rambling a bit. So anyways, coming full circle back to the energy work, right? Since we didn't have the understanding how to process that stuff, it gets stored, right? And so we don't understand how to manage our energy systems. We don't understand our chakras. We don't understand our feelings. So we're just like, and it's like short circuit, and then we shove it under the rug. And so in a session or in a healing experience, it's really just about being guided to say, hey, are you ready to let this go? And then they're like, well, I don't know. I just feel this pain rising and I feel like there's a part of myself here. And I'm like, okay, let's do some work with that part. That's fine. And then other parts start to rise like, oh, I'm here too. And I'm like, suddenly there's just all this non-integrated energy that feels in a space of so much unconditional love and care and light, the beautiful white light of spirit. There's a safety that is felt. And that's why that the memory might pop or the part might come forward and be like, and typically there's just needs that never got met. There's genuine needs, like the need for being accepted. Simple.
Right. And I think that's really a gift. And one of the things that I think, if I heard it correctly, I think that will resonate with a lot of people is you don't have to relive it or even identify it to heal it, because there are a lot of people that are like, I do know what happened. I don't want to talk about it because it hurts to talk about. I want to get over it, but I don't want to relive it and risk getting stuck in it again. So to hear you say, yeah, you don't have to do that, I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, wait a minute, then maybe it is time to truly let this go, because that is, we've always been told to let something go, you have to see it, see everything about it, learn from it. And it's like, there are some things that it's like, rather not learn from it because I don't want to re experience it and get caught in the emotions of it again. It took me, like, say, a year to get over it the first time. So that's really a gift that you can offer to people. And what amazes me is I'm wondering, what was the aha moment that you had that brought all this together and built this healing modality system that you've been doing?
Yeah, thank you. Um, there was a little bit, two parts, it feels like there, and it went into your comment and then into your question, if that's okay. The comment you just made, and here's the thing. Sometimes, again, some folks connect to source, to spirit, divine creation. We're just bringing forth, all the possibilities. Some people connect to that energy and they feel like a deep soulful connection immediately. They're just like, oh, I feel so held by this energy. And especially when they are inviting that energy in and they're open to it, usually just the act of just choosing to feel supported, accepting that you're being supported, know that you're being held here. You're not going to fall. You can do the trust fall, and you're going to 100%. There's so much faith in certain systems. Sometimes those who don't have that faith, and that's not a problem, it's just process. They may have felt when they were hurting the most that energy was not present. Because what happened was when we go into pain and we don't know how to process it, often we separate from ourself. We disconnect from spirit, right? So then that pain, of which was so painful in the past, was really because we didn't know how to connect with ourselves. We didn't feel connected to the divine. We just felt alone and scared and terrified. And like our pain felt like too much to handle. So I get what you're saying. Some people are like, oh, I don't want to go through that again, but we're inviting a new way forward. We're
Right.
inviting that when we access that energy, there can be instantaneous healing because you're now connected to yourself again. We're bringing you back to yourself. We're bringing you back to your soul. We're bringing you back to that remembrance, right? So when you touch that motion or that old memory, even for a moment, there's an instantaneous like, oh, I get it. And I'm being so held. And I'm feeling so much love, and like, oh, and then like, and we're inviting, can you give yourself this love? Can you give the memory love? Can you give this? Can you understand it now? Can you see that you didn't know how to process it? Can you see that, there was a lack of understanding, and your parents had parents and their parents were like that, and their parents, you know what I mean? Like you can start to bring that understanding and truth to it very quickly. And it's just amazing how fast it can process out. It just needs that, it needs that little bit of like attention and focus that is, so loving and so caring and so spiritual. And suddenly you're going to see that the energy that was so supposedly stuck or locked instantaneously moves. So it does deserve some attention, right? Some of these,
Right.
especially the ones that were like, let's say traumatic, right? You might like just for a moment, like, okay, I feel it. And then we're just going to work with it. You know, you don't have to relive it. You don't have to go back out in the world. In fact, the moment that we get really brave and access the pain and then go into it with light and love, you never have to experience it again. The problem is when people decide that they don't want to see it again and they think it's just going to go away, they shove it back under the rug, and then now they're living from that within them all the time. Right. And so anything that we don't resolve that we wish resolved, and it simply does not resolve, it actually kind of builds in its energy within us, right? It creates things like fears, mind-based thinking, right? The mind-based thinking kind of turns into something. Usually it's like negative kind of fear-based thinking. Suddenly we've got beliefs that are limiting. We've got fears that we haven't resolved. We've got worries that we have now created. And it comes from that unresolved energy. And I understand it can be really scary to look at some of that stuff, especially if it was a traumatic experience. But until we do, it's creating this other stuff. And it's playing out in your life. It's probably playing out in your relationships with other people, with yourself. It's probably playing on with your money, the abundance in your life. It's probably playing out with how much fun you're having, how much joy you're experiencing, how much peace, right? So yeah, does it take courage to go, you know what, enough? I'm going to find myself my next spiritual teacher, or a healer, or a program, or a class, and I'm going to do some work because I'm tired. I'm sick and tired. I think there's a lot of people on the planet are just so sick and tired of being sick and tired. And they're like, and now we're in a time period where you absolutely can get the assistance you're looking for. I mean, there is a lot of great healers and teachers out there and programs. I'm sorry. So there's another part of the question. I want to make sure.
Well, you actually brought up something that I want to kind of question before you jump to the aha moment is, as you're talking about, like, sweeping it under, does that, you think, cause the what we call the onion effect, where you heal a layer and then there's more layers? Is that because we inadvertently, unawareingly, were sweeping it under, so it just built and built and built, so now we have to disassemble, disassemble, and we're no longer going to the root because their root is so buried?
Yes, that is a really powerful thing you're stating, the onion effect. Yeah, I used to call healing work for a long time the onion, and the artichoke, by the way. Yeah, those outside layers are kind of like the more obvious ones that you can kind of easily pull, right? And so again, so awesome, Spirit's so awesome. I will only give you what you can handle. So if you are getting started on the healing journey, spirits were like, hey, take a look at all this stuff out here. We don't have to go right to the root. We don't go right to the heart. I understand that's a lot for you. You can totally trust that if you're in the hands of spirit, you are not going to be forced or pushed into anything that you're not ready for. So those first initial layers are the ones that are obviously a little more obvious, a little more, they don't feel great, but you're like, oh yeah, okay. And who knows, you could pull off 3 layers in one healing experience, or you might pull off a bunch, just depending what you're ready for. So again, that readiness piece is so huge. Like, it's really like, I mean, when I started my healing work, I found a spiritual teacher many years ago, and I mean, I was beyond ready. I felt a little late to the party. Honestly, I was in my early 20s, and I just went I just launched in. I mean, I was like in that office many, many hours a week, just, peeling away the layers and just letting it all go. And I was and I'd go back in. She's like, you're amazing. What's happening here? And so it's right at the gate, this beautiful teacher, this very illuminated, loving being, said, you're doing this because in this way, courageously, because you are a healer of healers. You are a teacher of teachers. The gifts that I had masked were now coming out, you know, all the pain that I experienced, all the trauma, all the wounding, like it was all moving off my light, right? And suddenly I'm like, oh, here I am. Like, you know, so it's amazing what can happen with healing work. There's so many benefits. I mean, people might not only discover they're feeling more joyous or peaceful, but they actually might even experience they have healing gifts. You never know that you're like, oh my God, I myself am a healer. I had no idea. Like, you know, and so someone would have said, oh, no, you're a healer at that time. And I would have said, I don't know. I mean, no, I don't think so. And then it was like, no, you are. I was like, oh, let me do some more internal work. And then I did more internal work and more internal. It was just like, oh, here's this and here's that. And I can see that. And I can do. So, you know, there's really basically healing work is all it really is doing is it's removing the dust that is settled upon our light. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's such a cool aha that you had because you didn't go and say, I'm going to do this because of this, this, or this. You just naturally were drawn into it. And
Yeah.
so that's a really cool moment to have where to realize, yeah, you were doing something without even being totally aware what you were doing.
Yeah. I knew I went in there, to be honest, with that first session because I was so tired of being on the roller coaster of pain. I was like, I am ready to get off. I was experiencing a lot of highs and lows. I'd get really high. I'm like, okay, I'm happy. Oh God, stay here. And then I just dropped down. I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired of being up and down. Like I felt like I had seen what peace was in a few souls' eyes. I was like, that looks really good. I don't know what that is, but I want that. I want whatever you have. I want that. You know, and that was with the teacher that I first had. She was radiating joy and peace. And I was like, I want that. I want to feel at peace. I want to be joyous. And quickly after, I mean, within 6 months of, good work, I felt like a radiant butterfly. I was just like, oh no, I'm like cooking and I'm making jewelry and I'm just like feeling just so happy. I mean, a happiness I had never felt ever in my life.
And the beauty of it is it's all within. And
yeah,
one of the things that I remembered when I was doing Reiki and some other stuff was I'd always like get the joy of helping someone, but at the same time I would start to notice things that were going on with me were no longer either one triggering me like they used to, or I would be like oblivious all of a sudden to it, where before it was like oh my gosh. And so it was like really cool for me to, realize as much as we're helping others, at the same time, we're helping ourselves. And so we're always doing that selfless healing thyself, which is such a new thing for us. And so it's like really cool. And I wonder, with you, with your work, do you ever sit there and go, I didn't realize I had that to heal, but man, after today, I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had amazingly, sessions or retreats with facilitators, or I mean, I really do love kind of having someone in my corner that's gone further ahead if I can find that person. And just to go, hey, let me see how this goes today. And yeah, there's this amazing humility in that where you're like, wow, I didn't see that, and then I do see that. And I'm like, that is so helpful. I did not see that, because so basically healing work is really expanding like a balloon of consciousness within us, right? We're becoming more awake, more aware, more conscious. So as that expands within us, we see more, So someone will say, oh, so like, as you do so much healing work, you're so joyful, you're happy, you're good, right? Like it's easier as you evolve. It actually becomes much more refined. You go deeper into the rabbit hole. You go into the core of remember the outside onion, right? So now, or the artichoke, now you're in the deepest core of the deepest pain, and spirit would only present that to you because you're ready. Because you're like, okay. So yeah, those moments where I've been in the core work and I feel like I've done so much that I'm like, there's nothing more here. I think I'm pretty good. And then suddenly there's this other pattern that is just like, oh, wow. And then I access it and it's like streaming, tears streaming. And I'm like, this is so powerful. I'm so grateful. Like I didn't know I had this pocket, basically a pocket of energy and pain that was taking some of my bandwidth up. And that's what's so powerful to realize, that when we clear this stuff out, whatever does not serve, we increase our vitality, we increase our energy, we increase our seeing of things, we increase wanting to be here, we increase the goodness, we increase the joy, the happiness, all of it. And it's almost like as that density moves out, light comes in, right? So the only difference between myself, maybe yourself, and let's say a masterful, beautiful being like a ascended teacher, like a Jesus or a Buddha or any of these wonderful beings that have done their work internally and transcended into illuminated light beings, enlightened beings, is that they did their work to such a high degree that their entire system became filled with light. There's no more of this density we speak of. Right? There became every atom, every cell in their body burst into light. Is what enlightenment is. So as we do this work, we're doing that work. We're doing that work. We're bringing more light into the system and clearing out the density.
And I'm kind of curious, without giving any personal details, did you ever have an experience where a client came in and was like, I know you want us to take it slow, but I want to go to the very core of this issue, and I'm going there and diving in, and you're like, whoa, wait, what? You sure you want to do that?
No, I haven't experienced that actually, Michael. Not because it hasn't happened, just because we can feel that if someone brings that forward, that again, we can trust that if we're entering into a space where spirit is just at the center, that even though they may want that, some part of them may want that, we'll work with what they're ready for.
Okay, that's cool, because, like, I know I have the kind of nature of, if I'm going to do work, I'm going to do work to the very best, to the very good, like deep level that I can go, and take a chunk if I can at this time. And it's
Right?
like,
Why not?
yeah, and it's good to know that if it's good, it will, and if it's not, that it'll override me and go, okay, no, we're only going to take maybe baseball and not the volleyball size.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the key is to healing work is that the lesson is learned, right? So spirit does not want to bypass you getting that. So if you're like, I want to learn the whole thing, because usually, like, let's be honest, again, like if someone's like, I don't want to deal with this pain for, I'm just going to give it to you right now. Spirit's like, okay, great. So did you learn all of what this is about? Did you learn what this whole thing was designed for you? Like, what were the lessons? What was the teachings? What did your soul learn from that experience? So it's not just about healing it all really fast. It's about going, hey, like, what did you learn from that? That's a very big part of it. If we don't learn from it, we might repeat it. So Spirit's like, I will help you with this, but let's not repeat it. So let's, what did you learn? Like, what is it? Maybe for you is about unconditional love of self. Like maybe you've been loving parts of yourself, but other parts are just totally unacceptable. I can't accept laziness. I can't accept that I'm not good enough. I can't accept I'm not whatever, this look of a person. It's like, okay, so maybe one of the lessons is acceptance, like learning to accept all of yourself. And it's like, so that trauma or that pain that you're like, I am done. I don't want to feel that anymore. That was so horrible. I want to heal it right now. Someone might come to me and say that. Well, we would be like, okay, I totally get that. And that pain, that trauma, that circumstance, you were not a victim to it. Probably feels like you were. It was actually designed to teach you something. And no one likes to hear that. They're like, no, there's no way that, and I'm sorry, I mean, someone tragically died, or I was raped, or, whatever it is, right? These horrible things can happen. Tough things can happen. There's no way that was there to teach me something. No, it always does. It always is. There's always an opportunity. Or you could just go into victim and go concave and be like, the world's happening to me. You're a problem. I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to live in a caged box. Or you can go into like, wow, I have never been a victim, and everything that's ever occurred, it is happening for me, not to me.
Right. And that brought up a really good question I had, but I noticed we have like 3 minutes left.
I can
and
go.
I don't know if
8 minutes, actually. I need until 4:20. Yeah.
Well, I'll let you decide if you can answer this, or we may have to bring you back for a part 2.
Okay.
Is if somebody goes into what we call, I know you mentioned healing crisis, but on the layer of, like, they call them dark nights of the souls, is that something you feel like if they called you up and are like, hey, I'm in a dark night of the soul, that you could go, oh, come on in, let's do some work on it and we'll get you out of it? Or is that something you feel like, those are more personal experience, you really need to come through this on your own terms, and let's look at it when you come out the other side?
Yeah, great question. It can feel really supportive to have someone in your corner saying that you're going to be okay in a dark night of the soul moment, to be there present for someone, someone that can really say, I've been there, I've been through that before, you're going to be okay. You just stay with this energy. You stay right there. Dark nights of the soul are very catalytic to great expansion. They can be, someone might go inward and kind of not like it or feel scared of it. And it's like, no, it can be very catalytic. There's pain there, of course, could be really, really challenging pain. Again, yeah, I feel I could help them, but most importantly, it's like, would they be willing in the middle of that pain? Sometimes in the dark night of the soul, it's like, it's a very inward kind of dense experience of being like, I don't know if I can even ask for help. I'm just like in this like, and so, yeah, I've experienced mostly any dark night of the soul type experiences from my life that are, even if I had a facilitator, I just knew that they were there to love me no matter what. And that was helpful. I didn't actually necessarily reach out during it. You could feel that there was an importance to allowing my system to go through that. And it's really like this choice point, really, right? At the end of it, during it, the choice point of what you're going to choose. Do you choose the light or do you choose the dark? And in this deepest pain that you're going through.
Right. And the reason I ask that is because they're like, if you're aware enough of your body and how you react to stuff, you can kind of see the signs that you're about to dark night. And so I was like going, could you see the signs and go, hey, Reagan, I feel a dark night coming on. Can I come in, do a session and bypass it? So it's that's where I was going with it. And it was cool to hear that, you're still going to say, look, if you're have one coming on, go through it, know I'm here. And so it's like not something you can skip.
No, it's a part of the path. I mean, it can happen for folks for sure. The deeper you go into the rabbit hole, like I said, you might start to bring up some things that, can feel dark, and we can go into a concave kind of like, not sure what I'm going to choose. That statement I made is actually kind of profound. There's like, we're consistently on the path, sometimes given our darkest content, right? Of whatever we've experienced that we haven't processed, right? It's here now. And sometimes we're given an opportunity to choose in the midst of it, light, or you're going to choose the dark. And you can be very tested. You think, well, I don't know. I just don't choose a light right now. You know, it's like, I can't tell you how many times like I needed to keep repeating that like a mantra. I choose the light. I choose the light. I choose the light as I face this within myself. And really the dark night's almost like the times that we didn't choose the light. You know, it's the times that we did judge. It's the times that we did hate. It's the times that we did get violent. It's the stuff that the soul's like going, this has not always been an easy journey. The soul's not judging it, but it's like, let's bring this stuff up so you see it. You know, it's not hidden. It's like, oh, okay. And then often why it's so dark feeling is that those parts we spoke of before, the non-integrated parts, take the wheel of the system and say, I don't like the way this feels. I don't want to feel this. Is there something wrong with me? This is scary. You know, so that's what I'm talking about as far as how we can help, is to soothe and bring forth all the parts of the self that are now like all ramped up and scared, to let them know it's okay. This is normal. You're going to be fine. What do you choose? I choose the light. Okay, great. You choose the light. You're safe. And the light will be there even if you don't choose the light. But the point is like that of which is this kind of powerful, willful, courageous moment of choice. I find that to be extremely assistive during the dark night of the soul. And I absolutely have seen folks kind of heading towards a dark night of the soul. And yeah, it's not something that you can stop. I don't think I'd ever want to stop that. It's more about this deep reckoning with self on a profound historical level, and then bringing forth, that beautiful choice point. And not everybody chooses the light in that moment, and that's totally fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Which brings up a interesting two-part question for you, and I say two parts because it's got two different aspects. Same question though. One is the dark nights, do you think are really designed to help with the shadow work and bring awareness to some shadow elements that you are suppressing? And it's like, hey, the dark night, is really good at digging those up and going, okay, we're going to work on these. This is, kind of instigating shadow work. And the second part of it is these non-integrated parts that you talk about. Could they also be shadow, like what we call shadow aspects? That is entailed in the shadow work that we do. That's coming up to being healed.
Yeah, kind of like an abundance of that at once. It's like the deepest shadow of our being kind of like purging to the surface kind of thing. Yeah, I mean it is shadow work. It's almost like an amalgam, like almost like a conglomeration of all the shadows together into a dense pocket of energy, where you're right, like it's almost like you're being shown your work quickly. You're like, oh God, I had no idea. Like, oh, I'm feeling so much. It's like, it's like it doesn't have to go like that. You don't have to have a dark night of the dark night of the soul, but typically they can be very awakening. If again we are able to access that faith that I'm okay, I'm safe, and I choose the light, and I'm feeling all this energy, and oh my gosh, I didn't know, and then here it is, and I accept that, and I'm not gonna abandon myself. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna. And so that of which some folks might kind of go resist that energy, fear that pain. We would hope that they would do the opposite and go, okay, it's almost like a spiritual test. I find that I really have learned that the dark night of the soul is literally one of those spiritual tests that are not a problem. When we say spiritual test, that is actually just a part of the way things kind of are. We kind of get to like say, hey, you learn your lesson. Oh, let's see if you really learned your lesson. Oh, you learned your lesson. Okay, let me just, spirit kind of brings along something. Oh yeah, she did learn her lesson. Moving on. There's kind of this. So I feel that the dark night of the soul is kind of going, hey, like, what do you choose? Oh, wow, she chose the light. That's powerful. Okay, we're going to offer some more light here. We're going to grace. And so I find if one chooses light amidst the toughest moment, typically there's grace on the other side, this beautiful, soulful, loving, spiritual grace. Maybe not right away and maybe not in the way that you would expect it to look, but it comes in. It's spirit going, hey, good job. I know that took a lot of courage, and you're doing great. We're going to just usher you along. So we're constantly being supported in such beautiful, loving ways by spirit. And, people might not think if it's happening because they need to look some certain way, and it's happening all the time.
And that's actually perfect timing because it's 1 minute to,
Yeah.
and you need to go. And I can't think of a better, more hopeful way to end talking about going into doing work on yourself. So thank you for that. And real quick, where can people find you?
I am on all the channels, in Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel. The YouTube's great because it has a lot of my content, I'm a meditation specialist. So I do a lot of purifying healing meditations. A lot of the healing work comes through meditation and like a guided healing process. I have that. My website's great. So it's Ragan Thomson for all of that. A lot of people put the P in there. It's THOMSONRAGAN, no E in the name, Ragan Thomson. And if you go to my website, which is just raganthomson.com, there is a ton of content in there. I also used to have a podcast show. So those shows are there. I've got lots and lots of meditations. Also, any upcoming online events, workshops, classes, also in person, are all listed there. So.
Well, thank you for that. And hopefully we can have you on again.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was wonderful to be with you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.